We thought we knew the villains, the powers, and the rules of the Upside Down. We were wrong. Every answer the show gives us unlocks a darker secret. Today, we break down the definitive theories that will flip the entire Stranger Things saga upside down. Will Byers, the central paradox. Forget the idea that Will Byers is merely a victim. That sense of connection he feels, the psychic chill when Vecna is active, that's not post-traumatic stress. That's a hardwired link to the dimension. Will survived a week in the Upside Down as a 12-year-old with 0 weapons. He communicated through lights, avoided demogorgons, and stayed alive in a toxic hellscape. Normal kids don't manage that. Something about Will allowed him to understand that dimension instinctively, almost like he belonged there. The comics detailing his survival reveal he knew where to hide and when to run, suggesting he had a sixth sense. So the question becomes, was Will born with this connection, or did something mark him before Season 1 even started? Fans are convinced Season 5 will reveal Will isn't just a survivor, but the actual key to defeating everything. His unique connection might be the only way to truly understand how the Upside Down works. The Duffer Brothers have hinted Will's story comes full circle in the finale. And with trailers putting him front and center again, this theory feels less like speculation and more like an inevitable plot destiny. But if Will is the key to saving Hawkins, then why does Vecna feel like the main villain? That brings us to a theory that flips the entire show on its head. Vecna Puppet. Vecna, or Henry Creel, seems like the ultimate big bad, the guy orchestrating every nightmare from his twisted dimension throne. Except, this theory suggests Vecna isn't in control at all. He's being used by something even more powerful, the Mind Flayer itself. Instead of Henry creating that shadow monster, he might be its puppet, manipulated into thinking he's the master, while an ancient entity pulls his strings. Think about the staging of that Season 4 flashback. Henry is banished, and we see him wandering the wasteland before encountering the Mind Flayer's particle cloud. The show frames it as Henry shaping the Mind Flayer into his weapon. But watch that scene again. The particles swarm him aggressively, almost hungrily. That looks less like him controlling them, and more like them infecting him, transforming him into the Vecna we know. Here's what breaks the official story. The canon stage play confirms the Mind Flayer existed long before Henry was even born. This thing has been lurking in dimensional space for possibly thousands of years. Why would an ancient cosmic horror submit to an angry teenager? It doesn't add up unless Henry is the one being controlled. His whole speech about cleansing humanity could be the Mind Flayer's goals being fed through him like a mouthpiece. Even Vecna's methods align suspiciously perfectly with what the Mind Flayer wants. Both obsess over consuming Hawkins, creating hive minds, and opening gates. If Henry was truly independent, you'd expect his strategy to be personal, not identical to the invasion plan the Mind Flayer has been running since Season 2. Max's mind. Hold that thought, because the answer to the Mind Flayer's plan might be hiding in someone's fractured mind right now. Max Mayfield ended Season 4 in a coma, her mind seemingly gone when 11 tried to reach her. But what if Max isn't alone? The theory suggests Vecna didn't fully die from his injuries. He's hiding inside Max's consciousness, using her comatose state as a mental bunker while he heals. This means 11 can't find Max because Vecna is cloaking both of them from psychic detection. The show established that Vecna literally feeds on his victim's trauma. Max technically died for a full minute before revival, giving Vecna time to latch on. The emptiness 11 finds inside Max's mind could be Vecna hiding them both, a psychic smokescreen. This sets up an internal battle where Max has to face Vecna inside her own mindscape. She already broke free from him once using music and happy memories. The theory suggests she'll wake up with new powers gained from this experience, possibly even trapping Vecna instead of the other way around. This is a heroic and tragic twist, Max sacrificing her consciousness to be a prison. If Vecna escapes Max's mind, he comes back at full strength, knowing exactly how 11 fights and what the gang is planning. The fate of the final battle might depend entirely on how long Max can hold him. 11's bloodline. While Max might be fighting Vecna internally, there's an even darker secret about where 11's power came from in the first place. Her bloodline. The show never fully explained who 11's biological father is. One theory suggests Dr. Brenner is 11's father, not just her handler. What if Brenner fathered the child himself through a twisted eugenics program designed to manufacture psychic offspring? His relationship with 11 goes far beyond scientific interest. He's possessive, manipulative, and weirdly emotional about her in ways that suggest a deeper, familial connection. When she sent him to his supposed death in Season 1, his last words were about how special she was. That's a father justifying abuse, not a scientist discussing an experiment. The alternative, and arguably darker variant, is that Henry Creel is 11's father. This would make her Vecna's daughter. This suggests Brenner used Henry's potent DNA to create subsequent test subjects after discovering his natural powers. If 11 inherited her abilities from Henry, it explains why she's the only one strong enough to challenge him. Their final showdown when she was a kid takes on new meaning if it was father versus daughter. The comics hint at genetic experiments beyond just drugging pregnant women. Whether it's Brenner or Henry, 11 having a direct bloodline to one of these monsters explains her immense power level compared to every other test subject. If 11 finds out she's related to the villain, does it change how she fights him? Can she kill her own father to save the world? The Upside Down's secret, the Upside Down being stuck on November 6, 1983, is one of the show's biggest questions. The theory suggests it's a time-locked parallel reality. When 11 opened the first gate, she didn't just create a portal, she created a snapshot of Hawkins that became frozen at that exact moment. Everything in that dimension is locked to that date, which is why Nancy found her bedroom exactly as it was years ago. But how did Will communicate through lights in Season 1 if time was frozen? The theory proposes that psychic energy and living beings can temporarily unfreeze small parts. When Will touched the lights, his presence brought them back to life just long enough to send messages. This suggests the time lock isn't absolute. Now, think about the implication. If the freeze happened when 11 made contact with the Demogorgon, then she accidentally created the dimension. The darker alternative is that the freeze is intentional, designed by Vecna or the Mind Flayer to preserve Hawkins as a perfect invasion blueprint. They've been using this snapshot to study every house and street, preparing for the real assault. So, here's the critical question. If 11 created the Upside Down by accident, can she uncreate it? Season 5 might reveal that breaking the time lock is the key to destroying the dimension permanently. Eddie's return, the corrupted hero. Finally, there's the death fans refuse to accept. Eddie Munson. His final moments felt definitive, but this theory offers hope for his return as something tragically transformed. The idea is that Eddie could come back as a corrupted entity, possibly resurrected through upside-down infection. We know the dimension uses bodies, and since Eddie was swarmed by demobats, his corpse is still there, potentially being turned into something new. The Upside Down is full of vines and spores that infect and control living things, and Vecna himself is a human transformed by prolonged exposure. If Eddie's body is preserved, Season 5 could show him reanimated but corrupted, perhaps even as a reluctant general for Vecna. Imagine Dustin having to face his hero turned into a puppet. This makes the audience's emotional investment a literal weapon against the heroes. The fact that we didn't see a funeral or body recovery leaves the door wide open. Another possibility links him to the lab subjects. Maybe 010 is Eddie, having been experimented on as a child, memories wiped, only to be pulled back into the nightmare. It's a stretch, but the show loves hidden connections. However, the tragic villain version is more plausible. Dustin's arc would involve trying to save whatever's left of Eddie's mind while fighting the monster he became. But if Eddie comes back corrupted, that raises a bigger question. Who's actually doing the corrupting? Vecna, or the ancient, terrifying entity that controls him? Henry Creel's first victims. The murderous pattern of Vecna began decades before the events of Stranger Things, when he was simply a boy named Henry Creel. The first non-fatal target was his father, Victor Creel, a man plagued by immense guilt related to his traumatic experiences and acts of violence during World War II. Henry psychically amplified these memories, driving Victor mad and leading to his imprisonment. Henry then set his sights on his sister Alice Creel and his mother, Virginia Creel. Virginia, carrying the heavy burden of fear regarding her son's unnatural abilities and her inability to control him, was the primary target. Henry exploited these emotional wounds, using his powers to brutally twist and kill both his mother and sister. These initial family murders were crucial. They established the essential rule that would define Vecna's method for decades. His power can only fully manifest against a victim consumed by a profound, unaddressed, emotional wound. Chrissy Cunningham. Chrissy Cunningham, the popular cheerleader and Vecna's first victim in the Maine 1986 timeline, was a devastating example of this rule. Despite her public facade of happiness, Chrissy suffered from extreme guilt, intense body image issues, and mental distress rooted in her miserable home life and her controlling mother. This vulnerability made her an easy target. Vecna's curse began with terrifying, graphic hallucinations of her mother's criticism. Desperate for relief, she sought out Eddie Munson, hoping to obtain drugs, which only led her to the location of her death in his trailer. Vecna attacked, psychically trapping her in the upside down while her physical body levitated in the trailer. Her final moments involved her bones snapping and her eyes being gouged, a brutal act that opened the first new gate in the series. Her death immediately plunged Hawkins into chaos, incorrectly focusing the town's fear onto the Hellfire Club. Fred Benson, a co-worker of Nancy Wheeler at the Hawkins Post, became Vecna's second victim shortly after. Fred's deep-seated trauma stemmed from a fatal car accident he had caused, which he was never able to emotionally recover from. The lingering guilt and shame over taking a life were precisely the emotional anchors Vecna needed. The curse manifested as frightening visions of the accident victim and accusatory voices. While investigating Chrissy's murder with Nancy, Fred was overwhelmed by the visions and lured away to the cemetery. There, Vecna seized control, and Fred died in the same agonizing manner as Chrissy, confirming the repetitive, ritualistic nature of the killings. Patrick McKinney, a member of the basketball team hunting Eddie Munson, was Vecna's third confirmed kill. Patrick's emotional vulnerability was rooted in deep, unexpressed shame and fear related to his abusive father and possibly his own hidden anxieties about his sexuality or identity. He was cursed while cleaning up near the lake where the team found Eddie's van. His ordeal began with water-related visions, potentially linked to drowning, showcasing Vecna's ability to tailor the trauma imagery to the victim's greatest fear. He was pulled under the water and attacked, his death opening the third gate. Patrick's fate not only proved the killer was still at large, but also highlighted the indiscriminate nature of Vecna's targeting. Anyone with significant emotional weakness was fair game, regardless of their immediate role in the main conflict. Max Mayfield became Vecna's most formidable target. Her overwhelming trauma stemmed from the guilt over the death of her stepbrother, Billy Hargrove, believing she could have done more to save him. Vecna's initial psychic attacks were the darkest and most sustained of the season. Max's survival was entirely due to the group's quick thinking, using Kate Bush's "running up that hill" as a psychic anchor to break the curse temporarily. However, in the season finale, Max bravely surrendered herself as bait. During the confrontation, Vecna succeeded in completing the curse, destroying her physically by breaking her limbs and blinding her. Though her heart stopped, Eleven intervened at the last moment, using her restored power to try and restart Max's heart, leaving her in a coma. Her survival by El's power is a demonstration that while Vecna is powerful, his curse is not absolutely irreversible. Stage 1. The Pollywog. The entire life cycle begins in its most benign, almost cute form, the Pollywog. This is the creature Will Byers coughs up at the end of Season 1, revealing the ongoing infection. These tiny organisms are visually similar to slugs or tadpoles, hence the name, and they are typically only a few inches long. They are completely dependent on a host and pose no immediate threat in this stage, often appearing harmless until consumed by an unsuspecting host. In the case of poor Dart, as Dustin affectionately named him, he emerged as a resident of Hawkins only to be quickly adopted and fed by Dustin, accelerating its growth. The only physical feature that hints at its true nature is the small, gaping mouth that houses the initial beginnings of its signature petals. Stage 2. The slug. Once inside a host, the pollywog quickly grows and graduates into a more recognizably dangerous form. It leaves the host, usually through the mouth if it's consumed, and develops primitive legs and a distinctly reptilian appearance, moving far faster than its previous slug-like stage. At this point, it exhibits heightened predatory instincts. Its skin becomes tougher, allowing it to survive outside of a host, and it begins to shed its skin frequently, an essential process for its rapid growth. This creature is still relatively small, no larger than a small dog, but it has developed enough speed and agility to be a serious threat. This stage demonstrates its incredible biological programming, constantly consuming and shedding in its desperate need for mass. Stage 3. The demodog. The demodog, as coined by Dustin, represents the adolescent stage and is visually the most unique in the cycle. This creature is roughly the size of a large wolf and moves on all fours, making it incredibly quick and agile. Critically, the demodog cannot fully open its face, meaning its primary sense is not sight, but a form of echolocation or auditory sensing. This is a crucial vulnerability exploited by the kids in Season 2. Demodogs move and act as a collective, often operating under the direct psychic control of the Mind Flayer. They are seen traveling in packs, demonstrating a hive mentality and acting as the foot soldiers of the Upside Down's invading force, culminating in the siege on Hawkins' lab. Their rapid, coordinated, and aggressive behavior proves they are no longer just hunters, but a militarized threat. Stage 4. The Demogorgon. The final stage is the formidable, fully mature Demogorgon. This creature stands tall and humanoid, reaching over 7 feet in height, with a leathery, regenerative skin and an imposing stance. Its most defining feature is the 5-petaled face that opens to reveal rows of terrifyingly sharp teeth. The mature Demogorgon possesses the ability to breach dimensions, creating temporary portals or gates when necessary, making it an existential threat to the boundary between worlds. Unlike the Demodogs, the full Demogorgon often operates alone, acting as a solitary hunter or a powerful guard. It is the purest representation of the Upside Down's primal force, relentless, powerful, and utterly devoid of human intelligence or mercy. It is the creature that began the entire saga and remains the standard by which all other monsters are judged. Barb Holland Hoy. Barb was Nancy's studious best friend, instantly recognizable by her large glasses and cautious demeanor, making her feel like an outsider in the popular high school crowd.